Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Just in case you're new here, my name is Kay. It is very early in the morning, so I'm going to use my whisper voice. Our bedroom is, pretty far from my office, but I always worry that filming this early will wake my husband up, which is something I don't want to do. Cheers, the coffee's hot. Before I talk to you about a way to reframe savings and not spending money, I want to share with you a story. I want to share with you a story about a woman named Annie. So I'm in my mid-50s, and you'll have to go all the way back with me to be introduced to Annie. When I was a young mama, I didn't have a lot of money or resources, so I really had to find ways to feed my kid, nourishing food, as well as reduce the financial strain on household budget. And at that time, Blogspot used to be a really big thing with little blogs. Oh my goodness, they were very, very simple with pictures and then, writing. And I happened to bump into Annie's blog. Now, Annie was at that time in her 70s, and what she put out to the world via her blog was teaching young mothers like me how to live frugally, how to live below your means, and how to grow, preserve, and create nutritious foods. And she was always very good about showing that whole process of how you grow something, how you preserve it, how you make it into something that will feed your family. And then she would detail the finances behind it. And what Annie spoke of often that it just imprinted on me as a young woman was that, and again, you have to go back, right? This will have been, oh my goodness, 30 years ago? Can that be possible? At that time, a lot of young mothers were in the house, homekeeping, and they weren't out working. I of course was out working, but I wasn't a homekeeper at that time. But anyway, so she would teach young women that, if your partner is out working, right, and they're generating income. And so often that income is fixed. I mean, you have $1,000, right? And it's fixed. That's what you have to work with. And she taught, individuals who were homekeeping how not to see frugality and doing things, on your own as saving, but rather as a way to generate a second source of income, which was just mind-blowing to me, because for me as a single mother, how I kind of started to see that was, I have my source of income. It is what it is. And saving's really hard. But if I saw the time that I invested in house maintenance and the things that I do within the home as a part-time job, and it generated income, that's how I can build wealth. And I just thought it was a really neat way to frame things. And I hadn't thought about that for a long time. For me, what I think about is I have my income, and how can I create a side hustle that will create a second income? And you saw it on my goals this year. I mean, I think it's right here in my financial planner, right up front. Generate a second source of income. Well, I don't have to invest, so time is critical, right? And think back to me as a single parent. Time was really critical. I was the only parent that was investing time in my child. So to have a competing interest for that time wasn't something I wanted. And I've really been in a reflective place thinking about this, and I thought of Annie and the lessons she taught me as a young woman, and I kind of noodled around with it, and that's what I wanted to share with you today. Because for me in 2026, generating a second income feels pretty important. I have a lot of lofty goals, and if I don't generate a second source of income, I know that I may fall short of those goals. So without putting too much pressure on myself, because time is something I don't have, I want to look at it, how can I achieve that? So what I did was, let's get to it. I know it's here someplace. Here it is. Actually, let me just tear these out and let's look at them together. So if you were watching my budgeting videos last year I went through all of my household expenses because some of them were pretty significant, like paper products. And I made some goals of how I could cut down the purchasing of those. So for example, last year, instead of consuming so many paper towels, I made the goal to start using hand towels. And instead of buying the expensive bread that my husband loves. My husband is a vegan and he consumes a lot of seed breads, and they're very, very expensive. I learned how to make those at home, and I could replace those expensive seed bread buys with my homemade bread. These goals that I set last year worked very, very well, and I continue to do that throughout the year, and know that I probably had actually even underestimated the savings, right? So that's where I kind of started. I want to be a little bit more ambitious. And so the first thing I did was, how can I turn everyday life into income? How can I invest my time instead of having a second source of income, like an outside job or developing products that I can sell? How can I turn what I do in the house into income? Cheers. So the first thing I did is, well, how can I earn? Ways that I can earn in the house. And I just kind of listed out some things, like, for example, just general house expenses, like vacuum cleaner bags, a new rug if I need a new rug under the sink, or just household cleaners, just house expenses. My personal expenses, groceries, transportation, clothing and beauty, health, hobbies, entertainment, gifts, work, membership, and financial admin. And that's how I manage the money that I have, that administration of the money. Are there things I can do there to generate income for myself? So I just kind of laid out my life and things in my life that I may want to look at. That was my step number one. Because again, remember, for me, if I can do things in the home that generate income for me, then it doesn't pull on my time, which I'm looking for that. Okay. So then I went in and I looked at all those buckets, and I said, well, where are my opportunities? And if you see these, they're aligned with that list. I looked to the house first. And one of the things that came up right away was to unplug things. I have some big energy devices in this house that stay plugged in 24/7, and they may be used once a week. So I looked at how is that going to impact things if I unplug things? Will it reduce my energy usage? Will it reduce? I'm in Southern California, so energy and the cost of energy is very, very high. Water usage in Southern California, very, very high. My Both of my electricity bill and water bills, if you've seen my budgeting, can be $400+ a month. In the summer, they can go to $700+ a month. So these were two big ones. Repair things instead of replacing them. If you saw my daily planning, you know that something that's been in my planner is to buy a new vacuum. And that's because my vacuum cleaner wasn't working. Now, I have since taken apart, yes, your girl took apart her vacuum cleaner, and I found the source of the clog. It was deep. It was problematic. I had vacuum dust particles all over me, all over my counter, all over my floor, but I found it, pulled it, and guess what? My vacuum cleaner is working again. In my book, I was going to expend, $150. I just buy little vacuums. I was going to spend $150 on a vacuum. That's income, $150 for me. Impulse buys, that's a big one for me. I can be easily influenced to buy things. Dried foods, this is a big one for me. When I was learning from Annie, and she was teaching us home care and home tending and how that generates income, a second source of income. Dried foods was a big one for Annie. And she would do the cost analysis on all of this. So she would demonstrate, she would provide you evidence with the income that generates for your household. I would love to do a cost analysis on this because I know it's big. We spend, again, my husband's a vegan, so we buy a lot of canned beans, and some of those canned beans can cost $3, and he may go through a dozen, cans of beans a week, whereas I can buy a bag of dried beans for $1, right? And cook them, and beans freeze very well. Again, I know all of this only because of Annie. She taught me, and I used to live like this. I used to live where buying canned goods, that wasn't a thing for me. I would either grow my own produce. I had, at that time, very large gardens, or when something was in season, and you know how it goes on sale, I would buy it in bulk and then preserve it, either through the freezer, drying, or canning. I did all three. So dried goods was high on my list. Frozen food prep. Again, many foods you'd never imagine freeze very, very well. And now they have these block freezer trays where you can, put a serving of rice, put a serving of beans, put a serving, and then you just take out a block, and you can take out a block of rice, a block of beans, a block of veggies, put them together, cook them, and you have yourself a meal. So frozen food prep, simple meals. Now, I work on this with my husband because my husband, who's a very good cook, by the way, makes very complicated things. In fact, the other day he bought some very sophisticated salt for $14, and I gave him a very hard time. Anyway, simple meals. Don't make meals that require 15 different ingredients. While they are delicious for my household, I want to limit those to special occasions only, not everyday consumption. Drinks can be big around here. I generally don't drink a lot of like canned drinks and things like that, juices, but my husband does, so it's a big expense around here. Same type of premise. Now, my property is backed up into some very large orchards, and our neighbors commonly bring over buckets of avocados, buckets of lemons. We have oranges, and I can squeeze and freeze concentrate and make that into a drink for my husband. Planning my gas buy. If I go and get Ralph's gas, it's much cheaper than me stopping one morning because I'm low on gas and I have to stop at the gas station right by the freeway. In fact, I can save a significant amount of money each month by just planning my gas runs. Limit my toll roll use. Clothing. makeup, protein products, which is something I'm gullible with because I struggle with protein. I'm a pescatarian and I just never know how to consume enough protein. Really struggle with my diet. And protein products are very expensive. And the funny thing is I buy them and I don't really like them. I don't like the taste of them. Sometimes they leave this aftertaste in my mouth. Yeah, I just never feel good when I consume them. Stationery, we'll go by that one. You all know that there. Limiting outings to special events. Making gifts instead of buying big elaborate gifts. Making homemade or very small meaningful gifts. Christmas budget. Limiting Starbucks run. I've gotten a lot better on that, but we still use it as a when we're out and about. And my Starbucks app is linked to a credit card. So it's very easy for me just to swipe on my app. And then all of a sudden at the end of the month, see like, whoa, spent $50 on Starbucks. Limit ordering luncheon at work. Now, most of my work days are really packed. I'm in meetings, so it doesn't happen often. But when it does happen, the bill can be big. It can be a $40 lunch. Memberships, which is something I always monitor, try to keep it a track of, but I notice every year they start here and they grow to here. And sinking funds to HSA. This is a big one, y'all. Let's talk about it for a minute, okay? Did I give you? I didn't. I have a worksheet that I did on this where I actually worked it out. In my sinking funds account right now, I have about $5,000. I had about $5,000. And I went through that and itemized all of those expenses. And at least 2,000 of them are the back end of the year. I don't need them now. They're coming at the back end of 2026. So when I was researching that, this is one of the ways, easy ways to generate income from savings. And that is I moved $2,000 of my sinking funds into my high yield savings account. And I'll let that sit there for the entire year until I need it, and then I'll pull it out. So that's a big one. Okay, so some commitments I made to myself. Let me get a tissue. I'll be right back. Some things this year that I know for sure I want to have low buy. Any new equipment, I put low buy instead of no buy. I'm not looking to buy new equipment, but I put low buy because I do have some older equipment that I know can break and I'm going to have to replace it. Dining out, drinks, new clothes, skincare, coffee, and work lunches. No buy commitments. I'm not going to buy any home decorations, accessories, new rugs. Unless there's an emergency, I'm not going to buy this year. I'm not going to buy new makeup. I have enough makeup right now to last the year. Now, don't ask me if it's okay for makeup to last a year. I don't know, but I have enough to last the year. Protein products. I want to stop buying those and instead rely on these other things over here. And memberships. Unless it's absolutely critical or going to benefit me in some great way, I don't want to have any more memberships. And then planned buys. Things I'm going to plan. I'm going to pause, slow down, and really do intentionally. My gas runs. Amazon. I was really good for quite some time about consolidating all Amazon purchases into like a once every other week. And what I found is I put it in my cart, save it for later. And then when I went back to it 2 weeks later, I was thinking, why did I put that in my cart? I don't need that. I've been working without that. That's not a purchase I need. So it actually saves me a lot of money. And then gifts. I'm going to be very intentional with gift buying this year. And again, focus on the meaning behind them. Home make whatever I can. And not get lost in that. I need to do big and impressive type of gift. Now, when I looked at potential savings, if I hit those marks, what can I save? And for me this year, I'm framing my savings are a second source of income. So it's very, very important. I want to prioritize that. I said I want to earn a second source of income this year, and let's look at how my savings can become income. So I broke down, and I tried to be very realistic with this, what I felt I could save. Look at that one, y'all. That's I told you, I'm not telling anybody how much I spent on stationery in 2025. It was off the chart. But I realistically just wrote everything down. And this is the income I can generate for 2026. Now, ironically, when I was looking at if I were to do pop-ups and sell my products, what would my goal be for income for that? And I had set the goal in my mind of, well, if I can do pop-ups, I would want to earn, like, let's say I did 4 pop-ups, and if I could walk away with $3,000 from each, that would be $12,000. I could generate income of $12,000. Well, look, I can generate that income right here in my own house without purchasing anything, investing time in it, right here. Now, that being said, the idea of pop-ups and getting out into community with my products and meeting other creators brings me a great sense of joy. So there's that, okay? But I'm talking about that piece of me that wants to generate income from it. It's here. It's right here. And I was really excited after I put this together and motivated to be committed and dedicated to this. And again, I have that experience from 2025, from those few things that we identified, that behaviors, habits I could change that would save money, that worked very well for me. But it was just a few things that we listed. These are a lot of things here. But I feel like they're all very doable. The thing for me is I forget. I forget about this thing that I want to be focusing on. So that's why you see what you see. That's why I wrote it all down, because I'm in my financial planner every day. And every day in my financial planner, almost every day, I have a habit of when I open it up, I go through the pages because I feel like I just need that awareness, that reminder. What are my goals? Where am I at before I actually get into the financial planning that I'm there to do for the day? So I place this at the top of my planner. And what I want to do is I want to create something for myself so I can do a good job at documenting. Like last year when I did this, it was more of a behavior of like, did I do that behavior? Did I do that thing? And I was able to say, yes, I did. And I just knew, I had saved money from that thing. This year, I want to be inspired by Annie. I want to do some cost analysis on some of these things and really look at how much we can save by just home management, by what we do in the home. So I'm going to keep these right up front. And throughout the year, maybe like at the end of a month, I'm going to take one of these things and I'm going to look at it. And is it a myth or is it real? And that's my goal this year for my financial planner. Again, I still have the goal of getting out and doing some pop-ups, but I shared in another video that I think I blew that for 2026 because I'm such a newbie and novice and don't know anything about that world. And I think I may have to, start that in 2027. And that's okay. One thing about being my age is you learn that not everything has to happen today. And I don't feel as rushed to like I would love to go do a pop-up. And if that doesn't happen in 2026 for me, because I need to set up some things to show that I would be a good vendor, that's okay for me. That's part of the process. It's part of my learning. It's part of my development. And yeah, I'm okay with that. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you today, how I'm reframing home management and savings in the home as a way to generate income for my family. Yeah, I look forward to the journey. Until the next time, may you be blessed.